Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to go through 3 sell high candidates in Dynasty Fantasy Football. Now, please keep in mind that this doesn't mean that I dislike these players. You know, fantasy football, specifically in a dynasty context, is a lot like a stock market where you want to sell high and buy low on players. If you think that the players who you would be selling high on probably aren't going to retain the production and total valuation by the community that they currently have, and buying low on players that you think will probably rise in total value and production as well. So once again, I like the players in which I'm mentioning in this video, but I think I have a couple of reasons why they would be potential good sell-high candidates. And so the first player we're going to discuss today is Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, he's currently valued at 70.89 points on KTC. Now, you and I probably don't agree with KTC on potentially a significant amount of players' valuations, right? Necessarily the order, the actual value in and of itself, but it's a pretty good idea to get a general consensus valuation of a player. And so right now he's valued at about 789 points once again. And when you put that into keep trade cut in a super flex slight tight end premium format, which I think is kind of a general dynasty value or more of a general dynasty scoring format. So he would be pretty much worth a 26 mid first and 26 late first after a little bit of a value adjustment on his side. But keep in mind, I'm going to show you some trades that were made in real leagues within the past week that I think are ridiculous values for Emeka Egbuka. And I want to mention that your trade deadline may have already passed. This is more so if you want to do this before the trade deadline, but depending on your situation, you know, if you're rebuilding, if you're in the playoffs, that may differ. But it's also more so an off-season move and something to be thinking about before the actual off-season for us in fantasy football, right? So Emeka Egbuka is currently valued as the wide receiver 8. That's just above Drake London, who is barely a year older than him. You know, he's 24.4 as opposed to 23.1. And Drake London has already shown a very high points per game average and throughout a season. And he has Penix back, and I think Penix is going to be good for him long term. You may disagree. That's fine, but I would personally take Drake London 1-for-1 for Egbuka. I think he's more talented receiver, but I think they're both very talented. Rashee Rice, who's currently the leader in points per game in the NFL in fantasy points in a full PPR setting, who's only 25 and a half years old. I think that you could argue he might not be quite as talented, but he has a secure role in a volume-heavy offense connected to Patrick Mahomes. I think that he is severely he's severely undervalued in fantasy right now. McMillan, I think that if you wanted McMillan over Egbuka, that's fine. I think I'd probably prefer Egbuka, but once again, I don't really care. George Pickens, somebody that if he does need to get extended to stay in his current situation, but unless Dallas dramatically improves their defense, which has improved since the Quinnen Williams trade for sure, and potentially they could get a little bit better with some healthy corners like Trayvon Diggs returning from injury. But that passing volume, if he stays there, I think that he could be a top 12 wide receiver on an annual basis. And so I think you could potentially trade Egbuka for Pickens and get something else extra. But Pickens' situation could dramatically improve or decline depending on, where he goes. So that's very risky. Somebody like Nico Collins, I'd definitely rather have Egbuka. Ladd McConkey, I think, is somebody that with a little bit of decreased target competition with potentially Keenan Allen leaving, if they don't address that, I think could potentially be somebody I would try to take a little bit extra to move off of Egbuka to Ladd McConkey. Garrett Wilson, I don't really like the situation long-term. I hate that he signed in long-term with the Jets. Rome Odunze and Marvin Harrison, I probably would not take 1-for-1, but if he gave me a good enough plus, I would consider it for sure. So I think that he's just valued a little bit too high in my opinion, but I understand he is a very talented player. But a couple of reasons why I think that he's a good sell-high candidate. First of all, I want to take a look at his volume, right? He's being valued as a top 8 receiver. Now, when we think about his situation, Mike Evans has been hurt for most of the season, as has Chris Godwin, as has Jalen McMillan. Basically, all of his target competition has been hurt for the majority of the season, leading to increased opportunity. Now, despite this happening, he's 18th in target share at 25.6%, 23rd in target rate at 24.6%, He has a 40.4 deep target share, which is 17th, a 26.1 red zone target share percentage, that's 13th, 20.0% design target share, which is 30th, and a 32.5% first read target share, which is 17th. Now, I expect him to get better as a player, but he's doing this with essentially no target competition at the wide receiver position for a good majority of the season. And I expect Chris Godwin, who did come back and look relatively good despite dropping a touchdown this past week, to assume a good bit of volume, to be fair. And I think that McMillan isn't necessarily a scrub. I think that he's going to distinctly be the wide receiver 3 unless they choose to, for whatever reason, add more target competition. But I do think, to be fair, Mike Evans is on the last leg of his career, and it wouldn't shock me if he retires after this season. But he could potentially return next season to try to get one last 1,000-yard season. Who knows at this point? But the point is, he's valued as a top 10 receiver while not producing as I believe he is 11th in points per game at about 14 or so. And that's +1 in terms of his expected points per game based on his volume and the ways in which they use him per player profiler. I think that while he's a very good player, I think that the rookie fever is hitting, and I think he's just a little bit overvalued. Now, moving on to 3 trades that were made in real leagues per Dynasty Daddy. Once again, I can't guarantee that you will or will not be able to complete these trades. You know your league more than I ever will. And your trade deadline may have already passed, but if it has not, and you're not trying to contend in your rebuilding or in the offseason, if you would still try to want to complete some of these trades for the future, I think that these would be advantageous for you for the long term. So Woody Marks and Emeka Egbuka went for Neighbors and a 28 second. Personally, I think Woody Marks is a low-end, draft capital running back. These guys are easily replaced. The Kyron Williams and the Bucky Irvings are extremely rare. And Woody Marks, especially compared to Bucky Irving, is not nearly as good in terms of his efficiency. And I think he's a decent bet to get replaced. And he's probably a really good sell high candidate too. But I wanted to go with higher end players here. And so I think him for 28 second, I guess, is fair. I'd probably prefer the 28 second because I don't think we get anything from him. And I think the second could be thrown in a trade with more value personally. But really, the crux of the trade is Egbuka for Neighbors. I personally like Neighbors significantly more than Egbuka for the long term. I think he's a better player. I think that he has his own quarterback now, which we haven't been able to see his connection with Jackson Dart. But I have to tell you, Jackson Dart looks very good considering his situation. I think that he and Neighbors are going to be a great pairing. And I think that Neighbors is a diva, and I mean this in a positive way. I want receivers who are going to complain if they're not getting their targets. Why? Because I want fantasy points. So I think that is a distinctly advantageous thing that Neighbors has that I haven't really seen from Egbuka. And, like I mentioned, he isn't really getting the elite target share that somebody like Neighbors has. And Neighbors just doesn't really have significant target competition. Wan'Dale Robinson, Theo Johnson, those guys, I'm sorry, are not, Chris Godwin. They're not Mike Evans. Now, once again, Mike Evans probably isn't going to be around for at least more than next year, but still. And the next trade is Egbuka for Neighbors straight up. Once again, this is, depending on your valuation of these players, I think Neighbors is significantly more talented. If I could ship off Egbuka in any league for Neighbors, I would do that immediately, no questions asked. And then in the final trade, remember that his valuation was roughly that of a mid-26 first and a late 26 first. Well, he was sold 4 days ago in a 12-team start 10 for a 26, 27, and 28 first-round pick, and then a random fifth-round pick, which is pretty useless. But 3 firsts for Emeka Egbuka, that is an absolute smash and could set you up incredibly well for the future, especially if it's the same team's first, because then they don't have those chips to get better and younger as a team. And any given season that they tank due to injury or just loss of player value or retirement, anything, right? You could cash in on early firsts. So if you can control somebody else's destiny for multiple years in the future, that's a good investment in my opinion. So once again, these trades may not be possible for you, but these were real trades made in real dynasty leagues. Now, the second player I'm going to mention here is Jonathan Taylor of the Indianapolis Colts. His current valuation is 74.84 points, and in the past 6 months, it's risen up 20.75 total points. And right now, give or take with a little bit of a value adjustment because Jonathan Taylor would be the stud in this format, he's ranked at 2 mid-26 first in total value per KTC. Now, when we think about where he's ranked, he is ranked as the RB3 overall in Dynasty. That's only below the likes of Jameer Gibbs and Bijan Robinson, right? That's above the likes of Devon Achane, Ashton Genty, Amari and Hampton, Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, and everyone mentioned below. And everyone from Achane all the way through Quinshon Judkins are significantly younger than him, have less mileage on them, and in my opinion, have a significantly longer amount of time in which they have the chance to provide us with high-end RB1 production, some potentially another 3 years to 7 years. And I personally would rather have a chance for high-end RB1 production over the duration of another, say, 3 to 7 years over somebody that's already going to be 27 this next season and is coming off another high usage season. And now, why do I care so much about that? Well, currently he's on pace for 370 total touches this season. That may go up, it may go down a little bit, but it's not quite at the arbitrary 400 touch season. But when we get right up into this range, you generally see significant decline the next season. So Derrick Henry saw a performance decline in 2021 after his high usage 2020 season. Le'Veon Bell, the same thing after his 2017 season. And Christian McCaffrey, after his 400 touch season in 2019. And Christian McCaffrey has been an example of getting a ton of usage and every other year losing you your fantasy league because he's been hurt. Now, granted, the double-edged sword there is that when he stays healthy, he's a dynamic league-winning running back. So I definitely understand that argument. But typically when we see this kind of usage, it's not going to lead to good results the next season. Now, this has already happened once in Jonathan Taylor's career. And after finishing as the RB6 overall in terms of PPR finish in 15 games as a rookie, he was the RB1 overall in 17 games in 2021, where he had 332 carries and 40 receptions. He should be right around the 400 mark once again, and that was about 372. That was 372 touches in 2021, in which he had, and he's on pace for 370. So you see, the next season he played 11 games, was the RB33. The next season after that, he was the RB10, played 33 games. Then in 14 games, he had 303 attempts and 18 receptions, and he finishes the RB12, but once again, only played in 14 games. He has already once in his career, after having one of these ridiculous high performance, high usage seasons, declined for multiple seasons. I think he is a significant risk to lose a lot of value while being older due to not producing as much and probably having an increased injury risk based on his career. And now, here are a couple of trades made in real dynasty leagues. Jonathan Taylor was sold for Devon Achane and a first-round pick. Arguably, Devon Achane is not going to be as good as Jonathan Taylor for win-now production, but he's still fantastic for it. And then getting an extra first on top of that while having a running back that's probably going to be around for a longer duration of time, I would smash the Achane and first side. He was sold straight up for Ashton Genty in a 12-team start 10. Now, if you're contending, that's not the best move for you, but man, Ashton Genty is a serious talent. The situation is almost certainly going to get better, and if I could have a 21-year-old Ashton Genty, I would just take that straight up. He was sold for Malik Neighbors. Obviously, if you're a win now, that doesn't help you, but Malik Neighbors, I think, is going to be a dynamic wide receiver for a long stretch of time. I would easily take Malik Neighbors straight up over JT. And then Jonathan Taylor and Kincaid were sent for Jameer Gibbs. Dalton Kincaid, and this is, by the way, in a 12-team start 9 with no tight end premium in this format. So tight ends matter a lot less, and it's pretty easily replaceable tight end production, in my opinion. But yeah, if I could get Jameer Gibbs, a player who in a full PPR setting has already scored 50, he's still on his rookie deal, and 2 out of the past 5 games, besides that 55-point game, has also scored over 35 points. I would easily take the up tier at running back because Jameer Gibbs is a dynamic talent who I think, as they kind of potentially phase David Montgomery out of the offense through his age, as long as they don't replace him with somebody that's a really good talent, I think Jameer Gibbs is going to get even better than he is now. And so I would personally smash that side of the trade easily. And yeah, that's just an easy W in my opinion. And I want to give a special shout out to my Patreon members. Thank you to Big Hunt, SP, Mage Jack, Infamy MTG, AOYOB, The Don, and Any Buckeye. Thank you guys. I'm doing this full time now, and without your support, this would not be possible. If you'd like to become a member, I'm going to leave a link in both the comment section and description of this video. You'll receive not only, but including access to a Discord where we have a channel where we have NFL and college football talk, as well as a channel where we have fantasy football talk, and a third channel where we laugh at poor trade offers that we've been offered in fantasy football. But if you'd like to, you can always DM me with private, questions if you don't wish for it to be known by any community members. But you'll also get help with building your fantasy football teams every year. I'll use wins above replacement, as well as just looking at the general lineup and scoring settings to help you with your teams each year. I'll help you with trades that are advantageous based on those factors as well. You'll be part of a fun and growing active community. You'll not only receive access to videos early guaranteed, but you'll also have the ability to ask for personal videos that you and only you can view. Or potentially, if you'd like something to be shown on the channel, you'll have preferential treatment there as well. So please consider becoming a member. I'd really appreciate it. Let's get back to the video. And the third and final player I'm going to mention in the YouTube version of this video, by the way, on my Patreon, I'm going to have a fourth player mentioned who I think is the ultimate sell high candidate in Dynasty Fantasy Football. But currently, Oronde Gadsden, in a super flex, slight tight end premium, the 1+ is equivalent to a 0.5 premium. Is going to be valued at 50.21 points. That's a change of plus 29.03. It's decreased a little bit since his peak after his couple string performances of elite tight end 1 production, but he's currently valued, give or take, at a mid-26 first-round pick. So keep that in mind when I show you the trades later. And so when we take a look at where he's ranked, he's currently ranked as the tight end 7 overall, but he's not producing at a ridiculous amount in terms of fantasy points per game. On the season, he's had 10.1 points per game. That's not a real difference-making tight end. So I really don't see him as being significantly more valuable than players like Harold Fannin, who I think is a better player, and I think that probably will get improved quarterback play. Mason Taylor, who I think is the same, isn't necessarily a better player in my opinion, but should get increased quarterback play and has significantly less target competition. But the point being that if you look at the points per game here, he went from 9.6 to 3.6 to 2.4 to 11.8 to 29.4, 18.7, 11.8, 4.3, 6.1. Then they had their bye. So I was curious as to what it was going to look like for him after that. And then he had 3.7. And so on the season, while he did have a couple of 2 peak games that were real difference-making games of 29.4 and 18.7, he's still averaging only 10.1 on the season. And that's not a dramatic significant help to you in terms of points per game, really. And it's really being booned by, once again, 2 outlier performances. But why is this something that I'm worrying about for the future? Well, if you take a look at his target share, his 15.1% is 24th among tight ends. His target rate of 20.6% is 17th. Now, I want to have a couple of positive things because I don't want this to be a biased outlook. If we take a look at his deep target share, his 13.5% is 7th. And so that does lead to increased chances at getting big boom plays. So that is a positive. And his red zone target share of 25% is 9th. So that's a solid number. Getting targets in the end zone could lead to and should lead to an increased opportunity for touchdowns, right? But his design target share of 4.0% is 36th. And his first read target share of 16.7% is 20th. He has a lot of target competition, and Keenan Allen this season, who might leave after the season, so you could throw him out potentially. But you still have Trey Harris, the rookie wide receiver. You still have Ladd McConkey, obviously. You have Quentin Johnston. And then you're also going to get Amari and Hampton back, who is going to, in my opinion, eat up a decent amount of targets as well. So it's really, really crowded. So I think you're going to see a lot of spiky performances from him. And in general, I don't think you're going to be able to expect a significant amount of targets on a regular basis. And so I think that's going to hurt you unless you're in a best ball league, especially. And so here are a couple of real life trades that were made that I think are absolute smash accepts in Dynasty. So Gadsden in 2 seconds was sold for Brock Bowers. Now, I would probably lean on the side of that's probably not going to get accepted in most leagues, but that was a real trade that was made in a 12-team start 9. If I can get Brock Bowers for that, I would immediately smash that. Gadsden was sold for Ferguson in a 27 first. Sure, Terrence Ferguson isn't producing right now, but I do like him for the long term in this Rams offense. I think he's flashed with the opportunity he's been given. And really, I would prefer the 27 first over Gadsden straight up. So I think if you're getting an upside tight end and a first for Gadsden, I would smash that. And once again, that's in a 12-team start 9 as well. Now, in a 10-team start 8, Gadsden went for Jalen Waddle in a 27 second. I think Jalen Waddle is worth about probably a late first. So, a late first and a second round pick. I think you're getting about a second worth of extra value. But I also think that Jalen Waddle, in the absence of Tyreek Hill, I don't think Tyreek Hill will be returning in Miami. I could be wrong, though. I think that he has the opportunity to be a low-end wide receiver 1 and maybe as low as a mid wide receiver 2, but I think he's probably going to be in that high-end wide receiver 2 territory as long as he doesn't get significant target competition brought to him in Miami. But I think all 3 of these trades are smash accepts and were real trades done in fantasy leagues. And so to review, 3 players that I think are good sell-high candidates potentially after the season. And once again, this doesn't mean I don't like the player. It just means that I don't think that they're going to hold the value in which they currently have long-term. And for that reason, in a dynasty stock market kind of mentality, I think are good sell-high candidates this season are Emeka Egbuka. Remember, he's valued as a wide receiver 8 overall. He's been doing this with literally no target competition at all, and he's still not receiving an elite target share across multiple different thresholds. So I think that he is a good sell-high candidate, and I think that somebody like Rashee Rice, who's ranked lower than him, who's scoring the most points per game in fantasy right now for wide receivers, you could get a pretty decent plus potentially to that owner. Jonathan Taylor, remember, after his second season, which was a very high touch total season, he spent 2 years not producing for us, dealing with injuries. He still finished at the end of this past season as the running back 12, but did deal with injuries. And he's coming off a season this season in which he's currently on pace to have 370 total touches. I think that he's a very good candidate to decline based historically on how running backs coming off of high touch total seasons perform the next season. And then finally, Oronde Gadsden, who his value is really being propped up by 2 outlier games of 29 and 18 points, while the rest weren't difference-making weeks for us, and is currently valued at about a mid-first, but as you can see, has been sold for significantly more than that, and is dealing with a lot of target competition that I just don't think is going to allow him to be a consistent difference-making tight end. And so I just don't think that he's going to be a difference maker due to his situation long-term. But where do you agree? Where do you disagree? Let me know below in the comment section. And once again, if you're a Patreon member, stay here. We're going to be getting into a 4th player that I think is the best single sell high value in Dynasty right now in fantasy football. Once again, if you'd like to become a Patreon member, the link is going to be in the description. If you cannot or do not wish to, if you could just like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment below, I'd really appreciate it. Thanks, guys, and have a good day.